right, so Ash, welcome to the STEM Profile series.
Thank you for having me, sir.
All right, so now here we talk about science, technology, engineering, and math. And so I'm excited to talk to you because you were just recently accepted into a Master's of Science in a Data Science program.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. So I just got accepted into a program at Meharry. They just started two programs. So it's either data analytics and modeling, or they have an AI and machine learning course. But the first year, it's the same coursework for both disciplines. So you kind of get to feel it out, but when you get into your second year, then you get to decide which track you want to go in. So I am very, very excited. Like medical school was something I always wanted to go to. Didn't know that I would go to it through the back door, through through computer science, but I'm really interested. As a matter of fact, this week, I think during the summer, they have seminars like every week, and they bring a guest speaker that's doing something in the field. So, like this week, they had someone who was doing AI machine learning as far as dealing with emotions and identifying emotions and kids learning in the classroom K through 12. So he set up a machine and a model that learns facial features and tries to look at your facial features to see what emotions you're feeling when you're trying to learn.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, let me ask you this: what attracted you to this day field of data science?
Oh, it's crazy, right? So went back to school, went back to Morehouse, that an online program. Transitioned from my old degree, psych with a minor in bio, went into business. When I got into business, there was a course, data analytics and modeling. The professor in that program opened my eyes to something I didn't know existed. Like, I knew it was a thing, but I didn't understand the depths of the thing, right? So as we go on, we're learning and we're doing models. So we're actually using statistics. We're doing like regression analysis, and you're like making models, predictions, like predictive statistics. So we go on and on. And as the class goes on, it started to resonate with the science in me because I ask questions. Like I want to know why. Right? Like I always want to know why. Why is something this way? Why is it that way? I'm very inquisitive. So that helped me just in understanding things in the world like statistics and how it's used and how it can be used in like for you or against you. So when I took that class and I finished, I started researching the field after I graduated. So I took a year off, went and did a course at Brain Station in data analytics and modeling. We had to do a mini capstone project, ran and got some fake data off the internet and create a presentation with the visuals and the whole nine. And I just thought about like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So initially, always wanted to be in data and analytics from the Morehouse program. But then when I applied to Meharry, right when I was about to apply, they opened up AI and machine learning. So then I started learning about that. And I'm just interested. I'm very interested. It's the future. And I feel like when it comes to our people, we get on the wave too late. And by the time we get on the wave, the next wave is already started to rumble. So right now, AI and machine learning is the beginning of that wave. Don't know how long it's going to last, but this is the direction that like technology is going in. And it piqued my interest. So I want to be on the cusp of what's going to happen to the future. And if we don't understand it, this is the weapon that's going to be forged to be used against us in some way, shape, or form, because we're just going to be ignorant to how anything is being used. So, that definitely did it. Politics helped me a little bit want to get into data because they're always talking about things like statistics. Stats say this, stats say that, right? Statistics say this, and then they talk about it, but don't really know what they're talking about. We just take it at face value. It's like you just say statistics. So everyone says, oh, that's a thing, right? And I come to realize, like through independent studies, YouTube universities, so on and so forth, that data is the new currency. And it's always being pulled from you. They're always taking it from you. It dictates your behavior. So that dictates policy. And in turn, there's the money. So we can either go and entering into these spaces where we have very small representation and show that we too can be in those spaces and that we belong in those spaces, and just to bring exposure to it and to come and bring it back to the lab, because I always want to bring it back home to the community. So that that idea, that data is basically the new currency, and we participate in it, but we don't spend it. Once that clicked for me, there wasn't much of a choice.
Now, you talked about how we're usually on the tail end of these trends. What do you think some of the things that we can do to kind of get on the front end of some of these and new technological advances?
I definitely think that we need a push, more platforms like yours that are pushing STEM in some way, shape, or form. I think science, tech, engineering, and math are different expressions coming from the same source. So, like a mathematical mind or a science mind, they speak, they operate with a similar way, but they have a different language. So, whether you know how to deal with math, you're dealing with logic. So, even understanding how to do things in computers, computers are just another funny way of using math. Right. So instead of using 1 plus 2 or the function of this equals that, you learn the parameters for how the computer's program works, and then you learn how to manipulate that language to create things. So for us, I think most of the time we are consumers in things. And when you're a consumer, that means you're dealing with the finished product and you're taking whatever is given to you, as opposed to being producers where we can actually manipulate it. Like, even if you take it to something bare bones like farming, if you want bigger fruit, if you're a producer, you take the fruit that's in the supermarket. But if you're the farmer, you realize that maybe it's these nutrients, maybe it's this seed, maybe it's something else, maybe it's the soil, whatever it could be to produce the product that you see fit. And I think that's lacking in our community. I don't know why we don't deal with math and STEM. I don't know why it's not pushed the way it should be, but realistically speaking, all the money is in STEM.
Oh,
So like we push sports, but that's a lotto ticket. Like you're more likely to be a doctor than to be in the NBA.
and to your point, STEM fields are projected to grow at twice the rate of non-STEM fields over the next 10 plus years.
Right. And then now with the way things are going, the STEM fields are creating things to eliminate jobs in the non-STEM fields. So like in a minute, like, culinary arts, no disrespect to it at all, definitely think it's important. But in a minute, they're going to make a computer that's going to cook. Now you're going to be competing against a computer the same way all those Russian chess players, right? Before Bobby Fischer, they're competing against a machine in chess. That is AI.
Yeah, they got computers that make 3D food.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, you can be on the other end of it, or you can be on the cusp of it. And even to take it a step further, right? In that seminar, the professor was talking about bias, and AI has implicit biases in it. And you wouldn't even know that, right? So I'm looking in the seminar and I'm like, so AI has biases just like there are biases in the real world. Well, that makes sense because it's created by man, right? So it's not going to be able to outdo the creator. So us not having representation, because I asked him, why do you think there's bias? And he said, well, the demographics based on supply. So if a model is trying to look for something, if you have more Caucasians than you have Asians or African Americans, the model is going to be able to identify those things more because it just has more examples of it. So when you make something, the first person you test it on is yourself, right? And the next person you test it on is the next person that's next to you. So if our community is not in that space, we're kind of just getting put in there by happenstance. And whatever happens, happens. Just like now I'm gonna date myself. Remember when Xbox had the Connect and it could see you when you waved around, but it didn't work well with black people? I'm pretty sure if there were more black people working on the Connect, that wouldn't have been an issue. You see, so I think it's uber important for us to move into these spaces.
Now, we talked about before how the number of Black students graduating with STEM degrees is declining. In America, our scores on math and science tests are going down. What do you think is needed to motivate the next generation to go into STEM fields?
I think as a community, we have to highlight we have to highlight the importance of STEM in a way where we can make it relate to what this generation cares about. This generation is different from ours because we talked about this. Like our generation was, I'm a doctor, you're going to be a doctor because I said so. And we're like, all right, well, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This generation is like, I'm going to do what I want. Like I'm gonna be on my phone. You're not gonna stop me from being on my phone. Yeah, you would like me to do that, but I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do this. And I think the bridge is disconnected between the two generations and not understanding the importance of what's coming. So I think our generation and reaching back to the youth or the generation behind us, we have to take a different approach from do as I say. And I think instead of asking the younger generation to cross all the way across the bridge, I think it's our responsibility to go walk down the bridge and to go grab someone, even if it's to someone in your home, right? Like if every person took care of one, it grows exponentially. And to show them the importance of science, like, I don't knock any field, but there's a big difference between an art history major and an architect. They both have value in their own respect and right, but they're not all equal and pushing us through to the next level. And even now, in the political climate that we're in, like the immigrants that they're trying to remove from the United States, that's a labor class. The class that they want to bring in, because they have a backlog from India, that's a tech class. They're bringing them in for IT, not to pick fruit, not for music, right? They're here to work on computers. So those type of labor fields, you find cheap labor in third world countries. We're progressing away from that. So you're going to have to start being in those fields because when first third world countries turn to first world countries, they look for innovation, not labor and agriculture, or it's not the same type of labor force. So regardless, This presidency is thrusting us into that. So, like, here's the wave. Whether you ride it, this is the wave. You're not picking fruit, you're not picking cotton, you're not picking grapes, you're not going to be in a coal mine, right? Like that labor is done. Machines do that. So the next thing is you have to have an understanding of machinery. You have to understand tech. You have to understand science, tech, engineering, math. Like they all kind of mesh together. And even like I told you before, a person that has a degree or understanding in science, tech, engineering, and math, they can very easily go get a job or start a career in another field that has nothing to do with that. The reverse isn't true. People that don't go from being a social worker and turn around in mass and jump into being engineers. You just don't see that happening. So even by that standpoint, you cast a wider net. I just don't see the negative for it. And we use it all the time. Like if your kid can spend 30 hours a week on an Xbox, then they can spend 10 hours a week learning how to make one or how to manipulate it. So being owners instead of consumers in virtual real estate.
That's good. That's good. Now, I want to take you back though, you talked about starting out in psychology,
Yeah.
and did you have any early STEM experience that may have kind of primed you for this transition?
You know, so initially I wanted to be a doctor and I went into Morehouse for bio and bio was beating me down. I wanted to be pre-med, bio was beating me down. And I came to a realization that one, most doctors come from doctors, and two, if that's not the case, you need substantial support. So, like, you don't have time to work a full-time job and be a bio major and like try to like it's a different kind of discipline. And at that point in time, I wasn't ready for that. Like my transitioning from home down to college, like I was used to meals. You know what I'm saying? Like life wasn't lifing. I had the safety net. Now when I'm sitting here and I'm doing the work and I'm like, yo, this is a lot of work. And then I have to work. And I just couldn't make the balance. So psych was going to be my softer landing where I would still have bio for my minor and I would still be in the science field. But at that point in time, I wasn't just ready for the grind of what it took to actually come out pre-med. Like I've matured now. Back then I liked the party. Like, I like the party. I like to hang out. I like the social part of it. And when you're going into that field at that time, you have to be laser focused and sharp and you need support around you. Like you need the financial support so that you don't have to pick up an extra job, so that you can go ahead and like go to the labs. You can meet the tutors on their time, not I gotta go to work. And remember, when that was going on, cell phones aren't what they are now. Right? Like computers are not what they are now. Like the way to interact with people, like that was still free nights and weekends, Tom.
Right.
That's a whole different animal from what's going on now. So when I come back to it, I mean, my high school had a solid foundation. Um, and there was a lot of opportunity there. So when I already took physics. I was already in calculus, exposed to all that in high school. So transitioning over to college, when you came back over, you put me in college algebra. I was taking that in ninth grade. So there was already exposure there, but again, I still had a science mind. I think it's like a mindset of a certain type of logic. Like people who deal with the humanities, they have an expressive, empathetic heart or spirit. People who are in STEM, they're very logical because the steps add up. Like 1 plus 1 is always going to equal 2, right? Doesn't care how you feel about it, right? It doesn't care what mood you are in, right? Like the parameters for these rules, they're very succinct. And once you start building on it, okay, I understand this step, this builds on this, and it kind of moves forward. So that was always just a part of who I was and who I am. So in that, I think like this chose me in a way because it suited me. And I think people eventually will find who they are, whether they realize that they're doing it or not. You think you're making the choice, but it's choosing you because this is who you are. So it was a long journey, but I mean, here I am. So, and I'm happy for it. And realistically, I would motivate, encourage, push anyone. I don't care. I know it's a man's space, black man's space, but black women, black daughters, like we need to be in this conversation. We should not have such low representation in that space of the creation class and have so much space in a consumer class.
That's
So,
right. That's right. Well, Ash, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for sharing your time and your insights. And I know you got a lot more to say, so we might have to come back and do this again.
man, all day. You know, you my people, Marcus. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, sir.
And if you're watching, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and share.